Hello, my name is Star. The two movies that we watched are Walk on Water and Hula Girls. And between the two, I will say that I liked Hula Girls a lot. I like both of them, but I really liked Hula Girls. It was quite sad. Um, it was sadder than I expected it to be. I didn't actually expect it to be sad at all. But yeah, it was good. Both movies were really interesting. Um, I had to look up what Mossad was because I didn't know, and it's Israeli Secret Service. And yeah, I guess they hunted Nazis and protected people in Israel. Some of their tactics were criticized by some people back in the day, but because I guess they would sometimes kill the wrong people. Um, but generally they were used or seen as good for protecting people. And I guess in the movie though, they don't really it doesn't seem like a great agency, just because they're even though they're going after um, Nazi old Nazi generals, it depending on how you look at it, I guess it's not no one knows that they're doing it, so it's I don't know if it's seen as a greater good, depending on who you are, but either way, at least they're killing in the movie, at least they're killing Nazi generals, even if they're old. They're not generals anymore, but but yeah, so the movie is like the movie the movie's time period is after the Holocaust, of course. But there's still a lot of history with race and religion in the movie, and definitely I picked cultural identity to kind of talk about. I think there's a lot of cultural references and cultural identity, and just how it the films portray on culture is super heavy, for both. And in Walk on Water, um, I I noticed in the beginning of the movie, he and this kind of just has to do with his character. I don't think so much about his actual culture or heritage, but I noticed that when he is basically told he has to kill this that old guy, the grandfather, I think, of Pia and the brother Axel, I think. He kind of doesn't really want to, because he figures he's so old already. If he's not already dead, he is gonna die soon, right? He's not gonna harm anybody because he's probably 80 years old. Um, so that kind of gives you a perspective of him pretty early on, that he doesn't just kill to kill. For whatever reason, he's in that Secret Service. He he doesn't do it out of enjoyment of killing people. Um, and then it kind of also shows you in the beginning him smiling at a child, which is typically something I don't think I mean, I guess a psycho would still smile at a child. Just because they're psycho doesn't mean that they don't smile. But it just kind of, I feel overall the vibe they were kind of going for his character in the beginning of the movie was oh, he's a good guy, he's not a killer. He's just he just happens to kill people for a living. um and then he kills the child's dad. So I guess that's kind of not completely like it's not, I can't think of the word. Him killing the child's dad is not coinciding, I guess, with what I'm saying about his character. Um, So, it depends. But I think that overall, like, the the feel of his character through the movie, I think they were going for like a redeeming arc, sort of, especially at the end when he decides not to kill the grandfather. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess they had to have him kill the dad because they had to still show you that he is, like an assassin. So even though he, um, you know, he still like has this moment later on where he thinks of the child as he's thinking of his wife that passed away. So it's kind of like, even though he did that, it's going into that like redeeming arc where you want to see him as like a good guy. And I think that the part where the sister, Pia, she's talking to her brother and she's telling him that when she tells people about her, specifically her like boyfriends, about her background and how she's German, they tend to usually back away. And I think that in itself is a challenge because even though she's very open about it, it keeps people distant from her. And that, for her must be tough, especially because she personally didn't have anything to do with, what happened in the past. It was more so her ancestors and her very close, like closely related grandfather. Um, and then that kind of also ties into like how a history of someone's heritage, or like history of ancestry, can kind of define a person, especially if someone is meeting you or trying to decipher like your personality for the first time. It's very easy to judge someone right off the bat. And I think that if you know their history immediately, especially if there's like a lot of deeply rooted history within that heritage that they have, I think that it can easily hinder someone from getting to know the other person, respectfully so. Sometimes it's kind of like too close to home where you don't want to trust somebody, even though they don't particularly have anything to do with it. It's still it's still a traumatic thing that can affect the way you feel about people and connect to people. Just like how Rafiq, I think he was an Arab, and I'm not sure where they were at the time in the movie, but when, what's his name, Rael, the main character of Walk on Water, when he's going like to, he's driving them places, he's kind of like angry, you could tell, he's angry like at this guy, right? And even though he doesn't know him, he knows that he is of a certain culture or race that in the past did some things that he didn't agree with or wasn't fond of. And it's similar to the other situations where like I think what I'm trying to say is I think the movie specifically chose to do that, and that's kind of how they were portraying like another challenge of cultural identity and heritage is by having that like small, I feel like it was small because of how short the scene was, but it was something that kind of carried throughout the movie where you thought about it like towards even after and towards the end, because it was pretty big, right? It was big in like in like the like the context, because of all the history that happened with the Holocaust, with Jews, just from a lot of places that weren't just in Berlin. But yeah, all that stuff, and then like how, oops, yeah, stuff like that. Sorry, my computer like went dark. But yeah. Anyways, um, and then I wrote down challenge of keeping unwanted identity versus embracing a new one, and I think that was a big one, like a big theme kind of in Walk on Water. You can see how like the brother and sister, or mostly the sister, um, but also the main character, how they hold on to these certain things, you know, that that stayed with them. You know, and a lot of them were like, a lot of things that they hold on to were in the past, right? And a lot of it had to do with their culture and their identity, who they felt like they were, and who they felt like, you know, they were to the people who saw them, like, in the world. And I feel like in both movies, actually, there's like that trying to let go of certain things, but also, you know, there's a fine line between just like forgetting and then letting go, and being able to, you know, to move on and like create a new world where you're still the same person, but you're able to see things differently and have like a new mindset, you know, going forward with things. And I think that towards the end of the movie, the main character of Walk on Water, it felt like he was, you know, pretty much there, where he decided to not kill the grandfather, which was like shocking because the brother did it, and I was like, this is a movie, I know, but it was just so like, I mean, because he murdered someone, right? Like, even though, like, you know, he wasn't a good dude and he was like already gonna die, he still like actively chose to like murder his, you know, his grandfather is just some dude, I don't know, he probably just saw him as some old dude, like, and not his grandfather, because he didn't know him. But anyways, that was just like, it was just going through my head when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna kill him. And then a thing that I looked up, this rabbi named James Rosenberg in 2022, he wrote like a recap review of an early review that he wrote, and I just thought it was interesting. He watched this movie again a few days before Ukraine was invaded, and in 2022, and he mentioned how 10,000 to 12,000 Jewish Israelis live in Berlin, like current day in 2022 when he wrote this. And he also said, like, comparing, he was talking about like the current day president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. I don't know if that's how you say that, but and he said in the end of his review how some people say that he walks on water, and I thought it was like a, you know, like a nice tie kind of for, you know, because the movie is named that, and you know, I don't know that much about politics and whatnot, and you know, current events happening in the world sometimes, pretty late to those things usually, but I just thought that was interesting. So yeah, if anyone like disagrees with that, that'd be great, honestly, because I don't know much, especially with that, because that's something that's like, I don't know, a lot of that history is pretty new to me. But yeah, I mean, I just felt like it was an interesting note. But yeah, anyways, so Hula Girls. This movie I really, really liked. I wrote down some themes. I put change, despair, destiny, and to venture beyond. And I think that those are pretty self-explanatory, like, as to why they're a theme. But I also focus on cultural identity, and I wrote down a little bit more how they, well, I guess it's the same. I wrote down how they portray it. So, as far as like cultural identity in the film, the way that her mom thinks is very old-fashioned. I think that has a lot to do with how she herself was brought up, most likely. And like a just a kind of like a generational cycle of how her parents were brought up, and going back. And her daughter and her friend, I think it was Sane and Kyoko. No, it wasn't Kyoko. Kimiko, I think. um, she like they both wanted like bigger things, and it wasn't even necessarily from the teacher's words that that like everyone claimed that the teacher was like, or the dance teacher was like almost cursing them in a way, or like spreading like deceit and lies, especially to the girls. And that wasn't the case. These girls, like, they were actively choosing to help out and learn to dance hula, essentially to save the town, right? And especially the two friends, the two main girls, they didn't even need like the wisdom or like pep talks from the teacher in the beginning. They just wanted to do it. One, for the excitement, and they were young girls. They were like 16, and two, I think they just had they just, what's the word? They had like a stride in them. Like they strove. That's not. They wanted to strive for greatness. But yeah, and I think that was really, really noble. And then the brother, he, like a lot of the people in the town, he doesn't want to change, right? He doesn't want change to come until like kind of the end of the movie. You see him like really just, going for it and helping out. But in the beginning, I think like a lot of the change that he probably doesn't want to face has a lot to do with his culture, right? And they all grew up in this town. They've never left. Like that was just what you did. You went to the coal mine. If you were, a woman, you did what the mom was doing, like also surrounding the coal mine. Or, you like, I don't even know what else you would have done in that town, to be honest. I think most people in that town seemed like they were working, But yeah. So, but yeah, I think that a lot of that has to do with culture, because you grow up knowing one thing, and when you see something else happening, like you see your town changing, and you see foreigners come in, and you just like change is inevitable almost, and it's coming, and you just you're losing your job on top of that. And I feel like that it's just the natural human like fear inside you, right? Like of seeing like big change, but also a lot of that change is a lot of that fear, I think, is deeply rooted in his culture, because it's the way that he and a lot of people in the town were brought up. They, that like is their culture. So seeing that change can really affect somebody. And then I think also a big challenge that the film portrayed is like specifically how women were judged if they didn't follow like old ideals, or like old rules, for how women should act or what they should do, and what they shouldn't do, all that stuff. And I think that was a big theme also in the movie, like, because it was centered around these women, these female hula dancers. And I definitely, like, I think the film really did a good job of portraying, like, how there was things mentioned by people, that, like, that, made it clear that, like, they felt that the men in the town, and even the women in the town, felt like these girls could not achieve what they were trying to do, and they couldn't do it on their own. Like, the dancer, like, she was accused of having, like, done something to get where she was, you know, like she didn't just work hard. And the whole point of, you know, the girls and what they did was that all they did was work hard, you know, they didn't do anything extra besides learn to dance, you know, and they that was funny. um but you know, yeah, they were doing it for a reason, to save the town in a town where nobody respected what they were doing. And one thing I'll also talk about, because it's already 20 minutes, but I think that this was super, super cool. When the mom saw her dancing, right? When the mom saw the daughter dancing after Sine had left, I think that it was almost as if the mom like saw how much passion her daughter was experiencing, you know, like while she was dancing. And the way that they like made it slow motion was super dramatic, but I think that the way she saw her daughter in that like moment, like through a different lens, I think made the mom, you know, have a change of mind and a change of heart. And you could see that in the way that it almost felt like she had a new passion. The mom had a new passion for her daughter, and she immediately, you know, was trying to help instead of, you know, instead of the whole movie, instead of being, you know, un not supportive, right? And I think that that was a really powerful scene. And you know, that also meant that she had to change some of her ideals, you know, some of her views on the, you know, like the teacher, on hula dancing, on just, you know, moving your body like in that risque kind of way. And for some reason, you know, like hula was kind of like risky, and they all thought they had to be naked, even though it was like not that. But yeah, I think that was really cool. And both movies kind of have shifts from like super serious moments to like a little bit of humor, especially Hula Girls. And I think Walk on Water shows more of the after effects of traumatic events that historically occurred, and Hula Girls shows like the real time effects that happened. You know, because it wasn't like something that happened in the past and it's affecting this town. It was like something that was happening right then and there to the town, and they all were dealing with it in their own way. So I think that's, you know, a big way in which the movies differ, like the time areas and how they connected and stuff. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching.